Take every forest on Earth, every desert, every grassland, every mountain range. Stack all of that living space into one pile. It's a rounding error, because almost all of the space where life can actually exist on this planet is underwater, and almost all of that water is deep, dark, freezing, and under enough pressure to crush a submarine like a soda can. That's not the weird part. The weird part is what evolution built down there. A fish with a transparent head, a squid with two completely different eyes, an animal longer than a blue whale that technically isn't one animal, and the single weirdest thing in the deep sea isn't a creature at all. We'll get to that. Let's go down. Before the animals, you need 4 rules. Every strange thing you're about to see is a solution to one of them. Rule 1, the light runs out. Below about 200 meters, there's not enough sunlight for photosynthesis. By 1,000 meters, there's essentially no sunlight at all. Forever. Everywhere. Rule 2, the pressure is absurd. Every 10 meters you descend adds roughly 1 atmosphere of pressure. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, just under 11 kilometers down, you're sitting under something like 1,100 atmospheres. That's about 8 tons pressing on every square inch. Rule 3, it's cold. Most of the deep ocean sits at around 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. Not exciting, but it slows everything down. Metabolism, growth, aging. Rule 4, and this is the big one, there's almost no food. Nothing grows down there because nothing can photosynthesize. Food falls from above as marine snow, a slow drizzle of dead plankton, fish waste, and mucus. It's a permanent famine. Dark, crushing, cold, starving. Now watch what evolution does with that. First stop, the twilight zone. There's still a trace of blue light here, filtering down from above, just barely. And that scrap of light causes an arms race, because if any light exists, you can be seen from below as a silhouette. So down here, everyone is either trying to look up or trying not to be looked at. And the barrel eye is the winner of the looking up strategy. Its eyes are the 2 glowing green barrels inside its head, and they're pointed straight up through a dome of transparent skin. Yes, its forehead is a windshield. It's staring at the ceiling of the ocean, watching for silhouettes drifting past. For decades, nobody knew about the dome. Every barrel eye holed up in a net arrived with its head popped. It wasn't until researchers filmed one alive, intact, in the 2000s, that we realized the tubes could also rotate forward, so it can look up to find food, then swivel to look at what it's eating. The cockeyed squid takes a different approach. It refuses to choose. Its left eye is huge, bulging, and yellow. Its right eye is small and blue. It looks like a manufacturing defect. It isn't. Research suggests the big yellow eye points upward, straining for those faint silhouettes against the sunlight. The small eye points downward, watching for the sparks of bioluminescence in the black water below. 2 eyes, 2 completely different jobs, 1 animal. So it swims permanently tilted, like a fish that fell asleep mid-turn. Hatchetfish solved the silhouette problem by deleting the silhouette. Their bodies are flattened into razor-thin blades, and their bellies are lined with light organs. When light hits from above, they measure it and glow underneath at precisely matching brightness, erasing their own shadow. It's called counter-illumination. It's active camouflage, and fish invented it long before any military did. Then there's the vampire squid. Blood-red webbed arms, spikes lining the inside like a bear trap, and a scientific name that translates to vampire squid from hell. It eats garbage. It's not a squid, and it's not quite an octopus. It sits in its own group, the last survivor of an ancient lineage. It lives in the oxygen minimum zone, a layer of water so low in oxygen that most predators simply can't operate there, and it drifts through that dead zone, extending 2 long sticky filaments to catch marine snow. Then it scrapes the gunk off, balls it up with mucus, and eats it. It's a demon that lives in a place nobody else can survive, eating dandruff. Now the sunlight is gone completely. And when you remove the sun, the only light left is the light animals make themselves. Most of the deep sea's residents can produce their own light, and down here, that becomes the entire economy. The anglerfish is the famous one, the glowing lure on a fishing rod on its face, dangling in front of a mouthful of glass needles. The lure isn't even hers. It's packed with bioluminescent bacteria she farms. But the lure isn't the strange part. The male is. In many deep-sea anglerfish species, the male is a fraction of her size, sometimes a few percent of her length. He has no lure, and barely any digestive system. He has enormous nostrils. That's basically his whole build. A nose with a tail, sniffing the dark for a female before he starves. When he finds one, he bites her. And in some species, he never lets go. Their tissues fuse, their bloodstreams connect. He digests his own eyes, his own fins, most of his own organs, until he's a lump on his side that does nothing but supply sperm on demand. Some females carry several. Here's the twist that makes biologists nervous. Fusing tissue with another individual should be impossible. Your immune system exists specifically to attack foreign tissue. It's why human organ transplants need a lifetime of drugs. So, researchers sequenced anglerfish genomes and found that the species that fuse have gutted their own adaptive immune systems, losing genes considered essential in every other jawed vertebrate. They didn't beat the rejection problem. They deleted the immune system that causes it. And somehow, in a world full of bacteria, they're fine. Nobody fully knows how. The pelican eel solved the famine differently. It's mostly mouth, a hinged, unhinging pouch of a jaw that can balloon out far wider than its own body, so that when something finally does drift past, it doesn't matter how big it is. And on the end of its whip-thin tail, a small pink-red glowing tip, bait at one end, bucket at the other. The the dragonfish cheats the lighting entirely. Nearly all deep sea bioluminescence is blue-green, because that's the color that travels furthest in water, and nearly every deep sea eye is tuned to see blue-green. So, a few dragonfish species evolved organs under their eyes that glow red. To almost everything down there, red light doesn't exist, which means the dragonfish gets a private searchlight. It can see its prey. Its prey cannot see it. And to pull it off, it appears to have borrowed a chlorophyll-derived pigment, plant chemistry, sitting in a fish's retina, kilometers beneath the last sunlight. And drifting through all of this is the thing that breaks the category. A giant siphonophore filmed off Western Australia in 2020 was coiled in a spiral, with an estimated outer ring around 47 meters across, putting it in contention for the longest animal ever recorded. Except it isn't an animal. It's thousands of them. A siphonophore is a colony of genetically identical clones, each one grown for a single job. Some only swim, some only sting, some only digest, some only reproduce. All fused into one drifting string that behaves like a single creature. None of them can survive alone. It's not an animal. It's a corporation. Below 4,000 meters, the water column ends and the mud begins. The abyssal plain is the single largest habitat on Earth. A flat, silty desert covering most of the planet's surface. And the animals here have given up on speed entirely. Sea pigs are the local livestock. They're sea cucumbers that evolved legs, inflatable water-filled tube feet, and they wander the mud in herds, hoovering up the freshest marine snow. They can apparently detect where a recent fall landed and converge on it. Also, juvenile king crabs have been filmed hiding underneath them, using a walking sea cucumber as a mobile roof. The tripod fish rejected walking altogether. It has 3 enormously elongated fin rays, up to about a meter long, and it uses them to stand on the seafloor like a camera tripod. It stands facing into the current, holding its fins out, and waits for food to hit it. It barely sees. It doesn't need to. And because meeting another tripod fish out here is so unlikely, it carries both sets of reproductive organs, so if it does meet one, either of them can play either role. The giant isopod is what happens when a woodlouse is left unsupervised. They're the same basic body plan as the pillbugs in your garden, scaled up to nearly half a meter. They're scavengers, gorging so violently on a fallen carcass that they can barely move afterwards, because the next meal might be months away. One kept in a Japanese aquarium famously refused all food for around 5 years before it died, and the coffin fish does something no other fish was known to do. It holds its breath. It gulps water into oversized gill chambers, seals them shut, and sits there, for minutes at a time, not breathing. It also inflates itself with that water to look bigger. It's a saggy sulking balloon with a fishing lure and a grudge. Now the trenches. This is the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, and this is where the pressure gets genuinely hostile to chemistry itself. At these depths, pressure starts crushing proteins out of shape. Cells stop working, not because the animal is squashed, but because its molecules can't hold their form. Deep sea animals counter this with a stabilizing compound called TMAO, which props proteins up. The deeper you live, the more of it you pack in. Except there's a ceiling. Load in too much TMAO, and your cells become chemically unworkable for other reasons. Based on that limit, researchers calculated that fish should become impossible somewhere around 8,200 meters. And that's roughly where fish stop. The deepest fish ever filmed, a snailfish recorded off Japan in 2022 at just over 8,300 meters, sits right at the edge of that prediction, which means we may have found the actual chemical floor for vertebrate life. The snailfish itself looks like nothing. Pale, small, gelatinous, no scales, but like a tadpole made of wet tissue paper. It is the most successful vertebrate at the bottom of the world. Below that line, it's mostly amphipods, shrimp-like scavengers swarming in the dark, normally a couple of centimeters. In the deep, one species reaches over 30. Everything we've seen so far is starving, because everything up top runs on sunlight. Then, in 1977, scientists found hydrothermal vents, cracks in the seafloor, pouring out superheated, mineral-loaded water, and crowded around them was dense, thriving life that had nothing to do with the sun. Bacteria there run on hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg chemical, turning poison into food. An entire ecosystem, powered by the planet instead of the star. The giant tube worm is the flagship. It grows up to about 2 meters, and it has no mouth, no gut, and no anus. As a larva, it has a mouth just long enough to swallow the bacteria it needs. Then it seals it up forever, and spends its life as a bag of farmed microbes. The red plume is packed with special hemoglobin that carries oxygen and sulfide at the same time, feeding the farm inside. The Yeti crab farms too, but visibly. Its claws are covered in bristly hair, growing thick mats of bacteria, and it waves them rhythmically through the vent water like it's dancing to keep fresh chemicals flowing over its crops. Then it combs them off and eats them. The scaly foot snail just built armor. It's the only animal known to reinforce its shell and its foot with iron sulfide, mined straight from the vent fluid. It has a heart around 4 times larger than you'd expect for its size, to power the bacteria in its gut. It's also one of the first deep sea species declared endangered specifically because of deep sea mining. The vents it lives on are exactly what mining companies want. And when a whale dies and sinks, a whole ecosystem eats it for decades. The last shift belongs to the bone worm. No mouth, no stomach, a root system that drills into whale bone and dissolves it with acid. And the males? Microscopic. Dozens to over 100 of them live inside a single female's tube, permanently, as larvae that never grow up. So, and the weirdest animals of the deep. Except, here's the thing. The deep sea makes up the overwhelming majority of the living space on this planet. By most estimates, well over 90%. And we've properly mapped only around a quarter of the seafloor. Most species down there have never been named, and a lot of them will go extinct before anyone sees one. Cold, dark, high-pressure, chemical-powered life isn't the exception on Earth. It's the default. It's the standard model, running across nearly the entire planet, which means none of the animals in this video are weird. We are. Warm, dry, air-breathing, sunlight-dependent, living on a thin crust in the last 0.1% of the habitable space. That's the strange configuration. The deep sea isn't the alien planet. It's the planet. The rest of us are the exhibit,